Oh, hi guys, Dave here. This is a video on essentially the sort of the CNC procedure used to create this piece here. This is a wall hanging, I don't know, it's a wall hanging piece of art, I suppose, if you like, for a special friend of mine who's got a birthday coming up soon. And yeah, it's basically a very nice piece of live edge ash which I sourced online. It was reasonably well finished to start with, in that it was reasonably flat. I've passed it a couple of times top and bottom through my thicknesser to get it more flat, because I was going to engrave on it. I then removed the bark from the edges and tidied it all up basically. Then I've milled a channel representing a river through the middle of the piece, and then engraved my friend's daughter's name and then her name either side of the river, and then put some sort of decorative hearts, and then on the reverse, I don't know if you can probably see that, there's then a sort of happy birthday, message and date on the back there. It's then been finished with a couple of very thin coats of Osmo oil, finishing oil. The channel was poured using clear cast colour or epoxy with a blue colour and a sort of pearlescent powder as well, to give it a sort of an interesting look. So yeah, and then once I'd tidied up the engraving, I've then backfilled the engraving with water-based black paint, and then finished the surface, and that's basically it. Off for her birthday. Yeah, so I'm quite pleased with it, and hopefully it will look nice. So the rest of this video is essentially a little journey through the milling process, and also this was the first milling job on my WorkBee 1 meter by 1 meter screw-driven milling machine. The first job since I swapped the X-Carve USB-based controller for a Mach 3 based parallel controller. I've got I've put in a previous video, I've effectively got 2 milling machines, and now they're both driven from Mach 3 over the parallel port. And although I've had countless issues with USB before, this job ran end to end with no issues from a controller or a PC to controller interface no issues in terms of interfacing at all. So I was more than happy to just let it run, and it caused me no trouble at all, which probably would not have been the case with the USB based controller. I would almost certainly have had something drop out or go wrong. So yeah, quite pleased with it. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Okay, guys, Dave here. I thought now I've upgraded my 1 meter square WorkBee with a new controller. I've previously done a video on the parallel port controller change I did, swap from USB to parallel port. Anyway, previous video. This is the first milling job I've carried out, or I'm about to carry out, since that swap. So okay, well, it's probably easier just to describe what I'm doing. I've got a very nice piece of live edge ash here, which just about fits on the WorkBee, with about 1 inch to spare on one end and about 1.5 inches to spare on the other. It's a very nice piece of timber. It's live edge, so what I've done is I've removed the bark from the edges, and then prepared the edges. I've then run the wood top and bottom through my thicknesser, because there was a slight well, it wasn't brilliantly finished, fairly rough. So anyway, it's been thicknessed. So because I intend to do some engraving on this wood, so I need it a pretty pretty consistent thickness, otherwise obviously all the engraving is going to go get a bit pear-shaped. So the bottom line, the idea is that I've got two milling profiles set up here. The first one, this is a piece I'm making for a special friend of mine who she lives abroad, and it's a special birthday coming up. Won't tell you how old she is, but it's a special birthday anyway. So I'm going to mill a 10mm deep river, starting at the top and then sort of winding its way down across the wood till it reaches the bottom. It's going to be captive. By that I mean that I'm not milling right to the very edge. I'm leaving about a 5-8 mil space at the end, so the river or the recess that I'm milling I can then fill with epoxy, which I'm planning on using a nice sort of blue pearlescent epoxy, and of course because I've not gone right to the very edge, I won't need any sort of enclosure to pour the epoxy, because the river is captive. Now the ends of this wood are not great. You know, there's a few splits and things. So the idea is once the epoxy's been poured, I'll then cut the wood top and bottom to within the pour, and therefore it will no longer be captive, but it is for the purposes of the pour. And then I'm then going to swap bits. That mill I will be using a 6mm compression bit, single flute, 6mm single flute compression bit, because I want a nice top surface and I want a nice bottom surface. So the compression bit, for anybody that doesn't know, it's a strange tool. It's got effectively the lower part of it, about the lower 5mm in this particular case, is an upcut. So you get a nice clean bottom surface, and then the rest, and then there's a transition between the upcutter and the rest of the tool, which is a down cutter. So the down cutter gives you a nice clean top surface, and the upcut gives you a nice clean bottom surface, and then the waste is compressed into the transition and then hopefully ejected sideways. I'm going to be running at about I think about 16,000 RPM, and I'm running at about 1500 millimeters per minute. So hopefully that'll be okay. So that's the river, and then I'm going to swap tools to a very nice V-carve tool, which I'll show in a minute. I haven't got it with me actually to hand, but it's very nice. And then I plan to above the river I'll be engraving my friend's daughter's name, and then below the river I'll be engraving my friend's name, and then there's some like nice little decorative hearts and things that I'm sort of, I think 3 little hearts that I'm dropping around the river. So it should look, and then the reverse I'm gonna engrave a sort of a happy birthday message. So that's the plan. If it all goes horribly wrong, I'll be a bit upset because I won't have enough time to do another one. So I'm going to control most of the proceedings using this hand jogger or shuttle or whatever you want to call it, which I also previously reviewed. So yeah, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zero the Z-axis using my touch plate. So I'll stop this little bit of the video and then I'll splice another bit in when I've got that set up. Anyway, back in a minute. Okay guys, right, back again. Right, before actually starting milling, I'll be zeroing my Z-axis. Now, those of you more observant might have, here's my touch plate, may be wondering why my 0 point for this piece of timber seems to be halfway down the timber approximately and kind of on one edge. Well, this piece of timber, as you can see, is not a regular shape. I did all the tooling pass for this using Aspire. I find it easier to this point here, basically, as far as Aspire is concerned, is the midpoint of the job. Now it was a bit tricky because there was no no obvious place on this piece of timber to take a reference. So what I've done is I've drawn basically a line from the top corner of the timber to the bottom corner of the timber, and then picked the halfway point as my reference, which from a spir's point of view is the center of the job, even though the job's offset. It doesn't really matter. It's all arbitrary as long as you know where you are. So anyway, what we're going to do is zero the Z-axis. So I've got my touch plate here. Now the first thing you always check, or I always check, is that it's actually working. The probe is working. So if you look on the Mac 3 display, which I think is popped up in the corner of this video, you can see in the sort of just to the right of the, or just underneath the machine coordinates, it says axis scaling and probe active. If I touch the crop clip against the touch plate, you can see the probe active line going green. So we know that the connection's good before we find out it's not good by ramming the bit into the touch plate. So then connect the crop clip to the bit, and then move the plate under the cutting bit, and then I then have to you can see that okay. Currently the whole thing is in reset, so if I press the reset button, and now I can hear the motors whirring. Now if I hit my probe Z here, zeroed. So I then remove crop clip. I don't need this anymore, so let's take the whole thing away before it all goes horribly wrong. Put that to one side. Now I can then check to see if that's zeroed correctly. If I press my work home, so that's perfect. That's you couldn't get a sheet of paper under that, I wouldn't think. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'll come back in a second once I've got the dust extraction connected, and we'll start milling something. So I'll be back in a moment. Cheers. Okay guys, right, back again. Right, moment of truth, about to start milling. So we're all set up, dust extraction is connected, pretty much ready to go, I think. Yeah, I'll turn on the, it's going to get very noisy, so you probably won't be able to hear a thing apart from dust extraction, but here we go. So I'll turn the dust extraction on, and then the router. And then we'll give it a go. So far so good. Okay, gentlemen, well that's the first stage complete. So I've now got my nice milled river with about a 5mm gap. You can't quite see it, it's off the bottom of the camera. There's about a 5mm gap. It's got a nice finish. Oh yeah, I didn't use the compression bit in the end. I decided to use excuse me, an end mill, 6mm end mill. So now the next stage is the engraving. Now, one thing I did forget to fit, there's always one thing, there was an awful lot of spoil went everywhere rather than up the dust extractor because I forgot to fit the bottom part of the shoe. Excuse me. And unfortunately with the this particular router, its exhaust flow air is actually straight down onto the cutting board. And the good thing about this little shoe adapter is that it's got a channel in the side here, and it directs the airflow out of the side of the shoe rather than down on the board, but I forgot to fit it. I mean, normally I would have brushes here, but I mean, I decided not to fit brushes, otherwise you can't see what's going on. Oh dear. So, yeah. So it was tending to throw quite a lot of spoil all over the place, so you always forget something. So now I'm going to do... Okay guys, so as you can see, I've poured my river down the centre of this nice piece of ash and sort of finished the, well, not finished the surface, but given the surface a nice series of sands. So now I'm going to actually perform the engraving of the top surface. Now the river's in place. So yeah, that's what I'm about to start doing. So I'll be back in 2 secs. Okay, as promised, right, I'm back. Right, it's going to get noisy again, so I'm going to start the dust extraction and turn the router on and then get milling. Dust extraction on. That's the router running. Job's running. Fingers crossed. and the parallel port controller worked flawlessly. If that had been my old previous USB based X-Carve controller, I would have fully expected that to have failed at some point, or I would have been sitting here you know, waiting for it to happen, whereas with the parallel port controller, it's worked absolutely flawlessly, and I was at liberty to wander around my workshop, do other things, and just let it get on with it, knowing that it was going to be perfectly okay and not fail. So yeah, I'm going to tidy that top surface up a little bit. The engraving, it's pretty good, but it just needs a very light sand just to get rid of some of the edge edge muck, and then I'll flip the board over and engrave the sort of happy birthday message on the rear side. Then what I intend to do is go over the board with Osmo finishing. Because what I want to do is I want to backfill this engraving with like black paint, so that it really stands out against the board. And I think the best way to do that is to basically coat the board in sort of, say, 3 coats of very thin Osmo, which will totally seal the wood in and basically give it a watertight finish. And then I'm going to use a water-based black paint to backfill the lettering, and then I should just be able to wipe that residue off the surface as if it was a spill, because the Osmo is basically the sort of stuff you put on bars. You know, it should be water, but that's the theory anyway. So I should be able to just wipe the excess paint off. And then the last thing I'll then need to do is to trim the top and the bottom of the wood to get rid of the sort of so that basically the trim the top and the bottom such that the river the poured river no longer appears to be captive. So right, well I'll be back when I've carry on with a bit of that. Thanks for watching. Cheers.